maybe. This is an original tag. No? Too much?
I feel like it's a bit too energetic.
I am energetic.
Die!
If you're wondering why there was a sudden costume change, I'm sure Kieran will very kindly put the clip in here when it all went horribly wrong yesterday. Oh shit.
What?
Oh shit! I'm meant to be at a meeting. Fuck! I wanted to do a book tag, and it's 2020. There are no 2020 tags out yet that I know of, and I didn't want to rehash something that came out last year. So what I thought I'd do is rehash something that came out 3 years ago, but for a completely different community. So I occasionally watch beauty videos, and therefore every now and then YouTube will spit out an idea to me that came out 3 years ago that I've not seen, and the beauty community did a ride or die tag. So I've decided I want to do a ride or die tag, but with books. So I have accumulated some of my favourite books, and I have kind of created this tag for the variety of different favourites that you might have, and I want to see what your favourites are as well. So if you do the ride or die tag, please tag me in it, because I want to watch all of the videos, and it would be quite cool to see if a tag actually kind of blossoms from this one video. So this is like the original, but not original, because I've obviously stolen the idea from the beauty community, but I'm sure they won't even notice. So the first book on the list is the BFF book. So this is the book that you have had the longest, or it's the book that you take everywhere with you, but it's not necessarily everyone else's favourite, but it's the book that means the most to you because it has an attachment to your childhood. So for me, it's The Donkey on the Sands by Enid Blyton. Now, Enid Blyton is not for everyone. I think she was very much of her time, and I think there are a lot of kids my age who either loved or hated Enid Blyton. But this is a collection of short stories, so it's not as heavy as some of her other writing, which is stupid because she's written for kids, but if you try and read it again now, it's of its time. Whereas these stories kind of feel a bit timeless. They're a mixture of very contemporary short stories and almost like grim fairy tale stories. So if you really enjoy like the Hazelwood and things like that, where it's people taking that theme of fairy tales but putting their own spin on it, I would definitely recommend this. I love it. I've had it so long that I've actually got my initials. I don't know if you can even see that. Is there any point in stretching it? Like my initials on it, where I wanted everyone to know that this was my copy. And I've had this since I was about 6 years old, so this is an old book. And it's gross. It's got like sticker stains on it, it's got like tea marks on it, but the actual inside is in pretty good nick. But it's got like illustrations and things which I think are really cute and really creepy. My favourite story in this, there is a story about a little girl who sucks her thumb, and she loves the taste of peppermint, and she meets this witch who basically turns her thumb into a peppermint stick, and at first she thinks this is great because she loves the taste of peppermint and she loves sucking her thumb, so these are her two favourite things kind of combined. And then obviously she sucks her thumb and her thumb starts to wear away, which as an adult I'm like, that's really dark, but it essentially teaches this girl to stop sucking her thumb, and eventually her thumb returns to like a normal size. And as a kid I remember thinking like that's really like interesting and kind of dark, but maybe I was just more of a twisted kid than I am a twisted adult. But as an adult looking back, I'm like, wow, that's really dark. But I will not hear anyone say a bad word about this collection of stories. This is my favourite. I actually spent half an hour at a cocktail party discussing this with a lecturer who had written most of a thesis on Enid Blyton, and he hadn't even read this collection of short stories, and I had to explain to him in detail about each and every one because I love them so much. So this is my BFF book. Next on my list is The Long Drive. So The Long Drive book is the book where if you're going on a long journey, or if you're going on a plane or a train or something like that, or you know you're going to be stuck in one place for a long time and you need something that is going to see you through, this is that ride or die book. So for me it's Terry Pratchett's The Colour of Magic. What I love most about this is the audiobook. So I have this very, very pretty copy. It's got shiny stuff on it, it's hardback, it's the collector's edition. The Unseen University collection. I've also started the Malt collection as well. I just think they're beautiful. But for me, the audiobooks of these will see me through any long distance journey. So if I'm on a plane or if I'm driving especially, I will love listening to this. My brother and I went to Bluewater the other day, and that's at least an hour's drive from us. So we started The Colour of Magic again. And it was just like coming home to an old friend. Like, I know the story, I know all the good punchlines. I really, really enjoyed Terry Pratchett's style of writing. I know he's not for everyone. I know that some people really struggle with Terry Pratchett books, but for me, I won't hear a bad word said about his stories, because they're not. That was a whole lot of nothing really, Hannah. They're not necessarily easy listening. You've got to pay attention because there'll be like little snippets here and there. But if you're on a long journey and you just need something to distract you from the extended motorway or the fact that the airplane is shaking from turbulence, or you're just bored out of your nut, I feel like Terry Pratchett kind of has something that will soothe you on your journey. And The Colour of Magic, considering it's not a particularly big book, is a 13-hour audiobook. And that's just one. And obviously we know it's a series. So for me, any kind of long journey is not complete without a bit of Terry Pratchett. So that's my option for that one. The next one is The Quiet One. So this is the book that you go to when you just want some peace and quiet, you just want a little alone time, and something comfortable to sit and read. That's not necessarily going to take you very long, but it's just for those quiet moments. I think it's described as like an introverted extrovert, or an extroverted introvert. I like big social gatherings, but I need at least one day a week where I don't talk to anyone, where I'm not on social media, where I'm not talking to people, I'm not going to parties or whatever. And this book is for those moments where I'm like, just don't talk to me. Like, I love you, but don't talk to me. And I've gone with Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright. Now, this is actually a collection of poetry by Anna Simpson, that's not actually written by Anna Simpson, it's kind of just curated by her. And it's all the poems that you will recognise from your childhood, but you don't necessarily know all the words to. So obviously Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright is from Tiger by William Blake. And it's just, it's a really, really lovely collection of poems. And I just think that front cover as well is just really, really beautiful. So there's a whole range of different poems in here, lots of different poets, names you'll recognise. Okay, so poems that will be in this book, you've got W.H. Auden, William Blake, Emily Bronte, Emily Browning, Robert Burns, Coleridge, Collins, Cummings, Davis Dickinson, T.S. Eliot, Thomas Hardy, Thomas Hood, Ted Hughes, Ben Jonson, John Keats, Rudyard Kipling, Philip Larkin, Sylvia Plath, Edgar Allan Poe, William Shakespeare, and like so many more. I'm not reading all of them even, that's just a short summary of the list. So if you studied poetry at uni or at school and you had like a mild interest in it, but you didn't love it completely, I feel like this is the book for you, because I feel like you can go back to those ones that you're like, because you've got a nostalgia to them, they become ingrained in part of your psyche. And for me, it's really, really nice to just kind of brush over these things, knowing that I don't have to commit to any of these poets, and I don't have to study them anymore, and I don't have to pick apart these poems. Like, I understand them, and I understand the kind of context behind them, and I can just enjoy it for a quiet moment and then call it a day. So yeah, The Quiet One, that's this. On the other end of that spectrum, your Ride or Die Outgoing One. So this is the book that you take out in public, that you don't mind people talking to you about, that if anything you would actively sit and read it whilst in a public place so that people can talk about it. And for me, that is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, I studied Gothic fiction at university. I have been doing some lectures on Gothic fiction. I've actually been to Romania and seen the castle that this was based on. And Bram Stoker's Dracula is my favourite Gothic novel. Admittedly, the first 7 chapters are just about what John H. eats. It's written like a mystery. It's written in small chunks. It includes newspaper clippings and radio files and all these different things. So in the same way that Jekyll and Hyde is kind of broken up into lots of bits, You have to kind of put all the pieces together. Now, you know from the start who Dracula is, and yet the book is really coy about it, and it is a kind of developed mystery, and people start dying and weird things are happening, and it's very supernatural, very spooky, and it's impossible to read this book and not see how much is stolen from it in any other vampire novel. It wasn't the original vampire novel, but it might as well have been. So this is the book that I will read in a coffee shop in the hopes that some handsome man will come over and tell me that he's a vampire. No, I'm joking. Tell me that he likes gothic fiction as well, and then maybe one day we can get married and teach our children about gothic fiction and just live the romantic dream. Mozart has just shown up because I'm talking about the potential romance, and he's not okay with that. It's fine. You're the most important man in my life. Are you happy with that answer? I don't know what he feels.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Do you feel anything? No, he's done. Okay. Next on the list is The Newcomer. So this is the one that you've read most recently that you want to hype, and for some reason no one else seems to be hyping. So for me, it's Empress of All Seasons. I finished this a couple of weeks ago and I am obsessed with it. I keep trying to find big reviews and ratings and things, and they just don't seem to exist. No one seems to know this book exists. There's just spatterings of it was good, I enjoyed this, blah blah blah. I thought it was epic. It's based in Japanese mythology, so it's something a little bit different from what I'm used to. A lot of the fantasy books that I've read previously have all been based in Norse and Roman and Greek mythology. So I'm actively trying to find other books and other mythologies, because I know they exist, and I've done, I watch anime, so I know Japanese mythology exists. It's more just I haven't read books on it because they haven't been related to a course, or they just haven't been gifted to me. And now that I'm obviously doing YouTube, I'm actively trying to find books out of what I usually read, so that I'm not just talking about the same books over and over again. And you'll realise the irony of that when we get to a few more of the books in this list. But that's why I wanted to talk about The Empress of All Seasons. Now, I will rate this and probably review it in my wrap-up, so I don't want to give too much away. But if you're kind of sick of the arguments about diverse fantasy, read this book. Just read it and then thank me later. It is great. I rated it, I think... Oh no, I'm not going to tell you. I literally just said I'm not going to tell you. I'm an idiot. Ignore me. I really enjoyed it. It had a rocky start, it had a rocky end, but that was about 20 pages in total of the 400. The rest of it is just epic. The main character is fantastic. You can really feel her impending doom. The descriptions are incredible. The world building is there. You get these little snippets of the gods and goddesses that have created this world that they're in. And I just think it's incredible. And I want more people to read it. The real reason I did this video is that I could be read it. It's so good. Loved it. Loved it. Yeah, okay. So we'll go on to The Stranger. Ironically, I did think about having The Empress of All Seasons as The Stranger. So this is the book that no one else seems to have heard of, and you can't fathom why. And I've gone for the Star-Crossed trilogy. Now, ironically, I've picked up Goddess, because I had the second book, which is Dreamless and Goddess, on my shelves, but I have lent my friend Kate Star-Crossed, I think it's Kate, because I need her to read it. I need her to read it because I need someone to talk to about it, and I know Kate is a fantastic reader and she will have it back to me very soon and we can discuss it at length, because I loved this series, and I can't seem to find anyone else who's read it who, well, I can't find anyone else who's read it. So this is essentially, it's almost Romeo and Juliet, but it's not. It's almost Twilight, but it's not. It's very, very deep into Greek mythology. So it's almost Percy Jackson, but it's not. It's so much better than all of those things. I really, really enjoyed it. It's about, I can't remember the girl's name now. Helen, obviously. Helen and Lucas are two people that just happen to go to the same school. And they accidentally bump into each other, and they discover they are on either sides of a centuries-old Greek feud. And because of that, they have a physical response and want to try and kill each other. But in crazy random happenstance, they end up saving each other's lives one time, and the truce is like the bond is broken, and the truce is kind of broken, so the families are kind of going at each other again, but they're also they become allies, and it all kind of spirals from there. And the change brings about some supernatural stuff, and the gods start getting involved, and it's just fantastic. So if you really enjoyed like Cassandra Clare or PC Cast or Twilight or anything like that, any of those writers, I would 100% recommend the Starcross trilogy. I thought it was better than them. I think it's definitely better written. I think if you're going into it as an adult, having already read those books, it might seem a bit tropey and a bit familiar, but give it a go anyway. It's really good. It's really good. So, yeah. Okay, the next one is the Guilty Pleasure. So this is the ride or die book that you probably don't want to talk about too much. You don't want people to know that you've read. And I think I can get away with this one because I guarantee no one will have heard of it. So this is Midnight Moon. I'm just flashing back to all those times when I said I hated romance. I must have fallen out of love with romance at some point, but it was after I read this book. It was certainly after I read Pride and Prejudice as well, and Sanditon and Sensibility and all those others, and this feels a lot like that. If you are one of those people where you like the story of Pride and Prejudice, but actually reading Pride and Prejudice feels really hard, this is my recommendation to you guys. It's set during the French Revolution, and it starts, the opening chapter is a guy sailing around Morocco, and he finds a drowning girl who is beautiful and not quite dead, and saves her from the sea. And then the next chapter starts with a girl back at home masturbating whilst thinking about him. So that's where the guilty part comes in. There is some smut. It's not a lot. It's very, very dainty smut. But there is also scandal and intrigue and French Revolution stuff and political intrigue and all sorts of stuff, considering it's not a particularly thick book. And I think the saddest thing is I don't think this is in print anymore, so you may have to inquire at your local library if you want to read this, or I may lend it to you if you're really nice to me and you promise to give it back in the condition in which I lent it to you. I love this book. It's so stupid how much I love this book. I haven't reread it in a while. I keep going to reread it, and then I get to a cringy part and I'm like, it's not the time. But if I was, like, if someone asks me, okay, well, if you did like romance, what kind of romance would you read? I would very tentatively pick this up and throw this at them. It's just really good. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by how much I like this book. And I guess in some ways it's probably a good thing that you probably can't find it anywhere anymore. If you have read this book and you're like, Hannah, what are you talking about? It's literally everywhere. Please talk to me, because there's only one person that I know that's read this book because I lent it to her, and she gave it back to me and said, yeah, why did you lend this to me? And I was like, yeah, fair enough. So we'll leave that there. The next one is The Book Was Better. So this is the book that you really enjoyed reading, but the film came out and it made you cry. And it feels like a really obvious choice. Because it is a really obvious choice. Eragon is not a good book. It is not a well written book. The world building leaves quite a bit to be desired. The opening chapter is bad, where basically there's a lot of like sniffing the air and stuff like that. But I loved it, and there will always be a soft place in my heart for this book. And the film is dog shit. It's really bad. Because I think it takes everything that you would love about this book, the charm, the world building that is there, the character development, and it kind of just goes, no. I mean, I know this is a bad attempt at being Lord of the Rings. I know this. I'm not surprised by this. But I feel like that was kind of its charm, is it's for people that wanted to love Lord of the Rings, but it was too hard to get into, and they wanted an easy gateway drug. And this was it. And this is certainly it for me. Like, I've since read Lord of the Rings, and obviously it's 10,000 times better than this. But for me, the film just... the film makes everyone sad, and then everyone shits on the book as well because the book is also not good, and then they, you know, they say that the film had to be bad because the book was bad too, and Aragon deserved better, I'm just saying. I didn't realise I had so many feelings about this book still, but I apparently do. We should treat this book with more respect. And then, books are just falling on the floor, don't mind me. The last one is the Ride or Die author. So the author that you will go back to time and time again. It doesn't matter what they write, they could publish a 10-book series or their shopping list. You're going to buy it, you're going to read it. And for me, that is Philip Pullman. Now, for those of you who have followed me on Twitter, anytime someone comments about The Subtle Knife or The Amber Spyglass, I am one of the first people to be like, just accept it, reread the first book, you will see that there is lead up to the random plot twist or moral message at the end. It is so well placed, and I love this book. I don't know if I've told you guys this. The first time I read The Northern Lights was because a boy recommended it to me, and he was a very pretty boy, and he was very tall and very dark and very emo, and I loved him, but he was dating my best friend, so I couldn't date him, but I could have conversations with him about books, and this was the only book he'd read, so I was like, well, I want to talk to you more in a platonic way, so let's talk about books. And I went home and I read the book and I loved it, and then I ended up loving it more than I loved him because he turned out to be a scumbag. And I then realised more recently that actually that was not the first Philip Pullman book I'd ever read. I actually read The Firework Maker's Daughter, I think it's called, something like that, at primary school, and then reread it again a few years into secondary school. And I've also read his Sally Lockhart series, which I really enjoyed, and yeah, he's the author that I would go to every single time. So I've obviously got the 2 Book of Dust books. I've not yet watched the TV series. That's not because I don't want to, but that's because I kind of want to watch it at my own pace, and that pace will be all in one day. So I was waiting for it to finish. I don't know if it has finished yet, so I want to double check that, and then I will literally spend an entire Sunday just watching it, and then I will read the book. And this is my very, very pretty copy. It's very, very heavy. I'm getting cramp in my arm, but obviously it's all 3 of the books in the His Dark Materials series, and it just makes me so happy. It's a happy making book, and out of all of these, this is probably the one that I'm most emotionally attached to. Probably because it was my first, it was the time that I decided to be actively involved in fantasy, and if I could write a book that's half as loved as Philip Pullman's, then I know I'm doing really well. But yeah, so this tag was really interesting because I didn't realise how emotionally attached to some of the books that I've had for a long time I am, because they sit on a shelf and they just look really pretty, and I occasionally look at them, and then I'm collecting them up for this book tag, and all these nostalgia and memories pop up, and I just love them. I love them all. They are all beautiful, and if you have anything negative to say in my comments, you will be blocked, because these are my favourites, these are my babies, and these are my ride or die. I will defend them with my life. Now, it's not really a tag unless you start tagging other people in it, so for the final tag, even though technically that was the final tag, but just go with it. I want to tag 3 YouTubers that I would like to see their ride or die tag, but also because these are the 3 YouTubers that are I don't think I'm their ride or die, but I don't think they realise just the impact they've had on me as a YouTuber and someone on Twitter. They have been the 3 most warm and welcoming people from the community, and therefore if they need a kidney, they just got to ask. Because they've been so good to me. And those 3 YouTubers that I will be tagging, because I'd quite like to be on their ride or die list, is Little Wolf, Rachel's Realm, and Browsing for Books. I will be tagging them below. I can't wait to see what books are on their list, or if they just ignore me and just I can love them from afar, that is also acceptable. But other than that, I hope you have a nice day and go enjoy some of your nostalgia books. Just take a moment. I've given myself cramp.